I know we're all ready to be done with San Jose State, and this is kind of our process of putting it away by talking about Coach Harsin's press conference each week where he previews the next game. Yes, we will be referencing San Jose State a little bit, especially in the questions that he's asked, the answers that he gives, and the general things that he talks about in this press conference. In this video, we're going to be giving you a breakdown, a summary of sorts of what was said, in case you want to just take this as a short form way to get a grasp on what was discussed during this press conference. Before we do that, make sure you do smash that like button and that subscribe button if you haven't already. And we always want to thank our Booster Club members like Kelby Flowers, who help produce videos like this. As is typically the case with each of our conference, or press conference, I should say, summary videos, we give you just the bullet points of everything so that you don't have to go and watch the entire press conference, although we do stress that you do that because you can get the full context of everything that was said there. But in case you don't have that time, this video is going to serve that purpose for you. You can check out the press conference here on our channel. We'll provide a link up above in the video if you do want to check that out. So I've got my notes in front of me. We'll talk through them a little bit, just kind of candidly, go through each little piece of question and answer, and also any other comments that I might have on top of that in the summary. So let's jump right into that with the opening statement that Coach Harsin has for us. Obviously, with each game, he wants to give MVPs of the game. So offensively, Jarquez Hunter. Defensively, Derek Hall. Special teams, Oscar Chapman. Offensive line, Austin Troxell. Defensive line, Marcus Harris. And then he also is now giving Scholar awards for offense and defense. Offensive Scholar, Court Bradley. And Defensive Scholar, Sammy Cohen. Now, I know not everybody is just raving to know about Sammy Cohen, but we're going to talk about it because he felt the need to bring it up. Sammy Cohen is not participating this year, just like Nick Brahms. He is medically retired. This is the first time this year I've ever heard of medically retiring in like a true sense. So it's just kind of a new thing to hear it this often when discussing football. He is helping the program out just like Nick Brahms, but they are honoring him with the Defensive Scholar Award for the week. Looking ahead at Penn State, Coach Harsin says a couple of points that he has. Sean Clifford, quarterback, a little bit sporadic at times, but he didn't say that. I'm speaking about that, but he noted how good of a quarterback he thinks he is, and he's going to be a huge factor in the game. They are scoring 40 points a game. He has a high opinion of their special teams on all facets of that. So that's something that he really kind of fine tunes himself, but also is very prevalent in watching. And they have a history of 2-1 against Auburn in this series thus far. Obviously, Coach Harsin and his team are paying attention to that, but you know, Penn State is wanting to keep that lead, small lead, that they have for us right now. Let's jump into the questions that were asked. Asked about major takeaways from San Jose State. Boy, I'm sure we all had a few of those, and Coach Harsin did not even hesitate. I told you all in our reaction shows that he was going to harp right on top about turnovers and how much they hurt them. TJ's turnover was a good play by the defender in his opinion. He said he didn't say Robbie specifically when he was talking about this at this point, but I'm pretty sure that's who he was talking about. He said the other one was just a poor decision to throw the ball at that time and at that place. So not the best decision overall, but everybody makes mistakes. Turnovers are happening with limited pressure. I found that very interesting when he said that we're forcing these, or we're having these turnovers happen without too much of a effective pass rush against Auburn thus far. So that's encouraging in one sense, but it's also discouraging in another sense. It's just an interesting thing that he pointed out that I hadn't truly really grasped quite yet. And he also talked about assessing the quarterback specifically in another question. He didn't go into a lot of detail or spend a lot of time talking about Robbie a whole lot in this particular press conference. I don't think that's really telling of anything. I just found it interesting to note that he spent most of his time talking about TJ when asked about quarterbacks. And he said that he thought that what we all saw on TV, that TJ really responded well to the adversity of throwing that pick and how he came out and how he was moving around a lot better and making some plays, using his feet to make plays, to clean up broken plays. We all saw that, and I think it's pretty evident that he has some intangibles that you really want to see in your leader at quarterback. Thoughts on the last Penn State game. He was very impressed with Coach Franklin and then vicariously, obviously, the team that he coaches. He thought that we handled the Penn State game, and I would agree with this, very well. The noise, the hype that comes around a whiteout in Happy Valley, I thought that we did a great job, and Coach Harsin wanted to reiterate that as well. Interesting thing that he pointed out is that they have a new defensive coordinator, so we'll have to kind of start from square one essentially in terms of how we attack their defense and how they might attack us defensively. Assessing the 2 games of offensive line play thus far. So the running game, he said, and I would agree with this too, it's been okay. It's been good, really good at times, and other times it's been a little bit underwhelming. So okay right now, I think, is a fair assessment of that. Said that the fine-tuned thing is that they're not really clean on some of their techniques, their fundamentals right now, but they are improving and getting better. And, you know, I would like personally to see a little bit more improvement, but he's the coach, and I'm going to go off of what he says right now. Jumping back to assessing the defensive backs real quick. Some of the difficulties that they're having defensive back-wise are being caused by the quarterbacks that they're playing. Now, on the surface, and I kind of took it to it this, he clarifies. It sounded like he was kind of making an excuse, but he also says that they have to be better, and so that type of quarterback doesn't become much more of an issue later on in the season. Mobile quarterbacks, guys who can use their feet really well. I don't remember Clifford being all that mobile of a guy, using his feet that well, but there are going to be other quarterbacks, plenty in the SEC especially, that we're going to have to get better at and defend better defensively overall, but as defensive backs as well. He was asked about Malcolm Johnson and him not being utilized. He said he was not ready to, health-wise, nothing major, to be able to contribute effectively in the last game, but they expect him to be back in the Penn State game. So it doesn't sound like there's anything really to be concerned about Malcolm Johnson right there, just kind of a game time or close to game time decision to not utilize him like they probably normally would. Adjustments being made between the 2 games. This is a point or question that was asked about. I said that the first, and this is more reference to the adjustments that are being made by the coaching staff. He said the first game was very helpful, but now with the second game, it's time for a lot of us, meaning the coaching staff, to start showing those adjustments on the field. I think we all look at the last game and say, well, it's hard to really show where those adjustments were made because we kind of took a backslide in some areas, but you don't know what's going to happen in the second game. He did note that is now time. We've gotten past the point where everybody gets a pass. Now we got to start showing that those adjustments are being made and will be implemented out on the field, and said that these young coaches are really learning, and that what he's most impressed by, not just the young guys, but all of his staff, is how well they're trying to adjust and how devoted they are to making sure they become a master at what their area is they're particularly coaching. Next question was about Penn State already having a very challenging game where they took on Purdue in week 1 and got about all that they could handle at the time if it wasn't for a late offensive spurt from Sean Clifford and them to take that one home in the end. They was asked about what can you take away from that? What can you see? The fact that they were already pushed, Coach Harsin was saying, was a good thing. Obviously, they can see how they respond in that particular situation. But it wasn't just that. He said that the Ohio film as well is going to be very valuable in assessing what they should do to attack offensively and defensively against Penn State. The next question was about Keontae Scott and DJ James, mainly around the topic of new guys really making an impact. And we've been talking about Keontae Scott a lot, and Coach Harsin has as well, and really continues to compliment how quickly he came on and learning the defense and being able to contribute from starting much later than everybody else. He didn't become part of the team in terms of being on campus and part of fall camp until a little bit after everybody else had been here. So the fact that he was able to progress that quickly is a huge thing. They're rewarding with him with opportunities and making the most of those on the field defensively and special teams wise. DJ James, we saw him a lot in this game too. And he said that while he still has a way to go, he has definitely earned the right to be out there a little bit more and contribute more defensively, especially like we've been seeing. Next up, asked a little bit more about assessing wide receiver play. And this was kind of some interesting commentary here where he kind of shucked responsibility of the less exciting factor of wide receiver play in game 2 from the wide receivers themselves. He did say that there's things that they obviously can do better, but the fact of the matter is they were throwing the ball to the other guys. They have got to get the ball to the wide receivers for them to even have an opportunity to make a play. And really that's what it just comes down to, not just at wide receivers, and Coach Harsin reiterated this a lot. It's time to start executing. You can plan the best game plan ever, but if you can't execute it, it really doesn't matter. You got to go out there in the field and produce what you're showing that you can do in practice, whether it's wide receivers, quarterbacks, offensive line, defensive line, it doesn't matter. Execution is really what we need to see right now. He was also asked about whether he prefers the neutral site opening games of the season for the big matchup of your non-conference year, or these home and home series that we do every 2 years or so. And he said that he likes them both, and he sees the value in going to these neutral site games about not just the hype it builds for us as fans and the college football world, but also how it kind of motivates to an extra level your players during fall camp, because they know they've got to be on for a game one. So there is some value there. But to me, and I'm just kind of speculating here based off his commentary, I think he prefers these home and home series. And personally, I really like them as well, because I think that it kind of feels a little bit more normal, and maybe that's just why I like it, but it sounds like he kind of does as well. And lastly, not really much to talk about there. He was asked about preparing for a hostile environment, and there wasn't really much to take away from that other than every coach has a certain way of doing that, and they can see if that's successful or not based on how they perform. So that is all the questions, comments, and discussion points from the press conference opening up Penn State weekend. I want to know from you what stuck out to you. Let me know down there in the comments section below. Before you head out of here, make sure you smash that like button if you enjoyed this type of content. Also subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads or live streams. If you want ways to help support our content, listed in the description are some links you can check out. You can become a Patreon member over at patreon.com/E2C Network, or hit the join button here to be a channel member for $1 a month. Thank you for tuning in to the E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. War Eagle.